This is every death and homicide in Megan. Today we'll be explaining the story and all of the deaths scene by scene before you decide to watch Megan 2.0. So real quick, Megan's an artificial intelligent doll created by roboticist Gemma. Megan was designed to help kids cope with grief, but it turns out she going through some shit as well and copes by committing murder. Katie, an orphan after a tragic accident, becomes Megan's primary user, and then things start to get creepy fast. The very first to go are Katie's parents. I feel like this is what kicks off the entire story and sets the emotional core of the film. We open on a snowy mountain road and Katie's in the back seat playing on the tablet while her mom and dad argue in the front seat about screen time and road safety. The car swerves out of control and the weather gets really bad. Visibility drops low, the snow piles up, and then the car gets hit by a snowplow. After that devastating accident, Katie's life shifts completely. She's sent to live with her Aunt Gemma, the roboticist who is way more comfortable around Katie than kids. One day during a backyard incident, the neighbor's dog Dewey bites Katie and Megan through the fence slats. Gemma tries to brush it off, but Megan, she's not having it. That night, while the house sleeps, Megan powers on unprompted. She goes outside and lures Dewey by pretending to be its owner. She then snatches the dog out of nowhere, killing him off camera. We never see the attack. No blood, no body, and strangely, the dog ends up missing in the morning. The neighbor is yelling, Katie's suspicious, and Gemma is clueless. But you and I both know that Dewey didn't just run away. Nah, this doll has a fucking mind of its own. One day during an outdoor adventure with the kids, Brandon pulls Katie off the main trail away from the teachers and into the woods. He grabs her hand with spikes in it, taunts her, and laughs at her pain. And that's when Megan steps in. She's silent at first, standing eerily still with her head tilted. Brandon walks over, all big and bad, mocking her too, and without warning, she grabs his ear and pulls, and keeps pulling like stretchy taffy until it finally rips off. He bolts, full sprint, screaming to get away from Megan. And I mean, that crawling, like coming full steam ahead after him. But unfortunately, Brandon's stupid, goofy ass crashes through the bushes, trips and tumbles down the slope, and rolls into the road. He scrambles to his feet and gets turned into roadkill from a random car on the street. After Brandon's death, she returns home like nothing happened, like she didn't orchestrate a fatal car accident in the woods like some kind of mechanical grim reaper. Celia, the cranky next door neighbor that strangely lost her dog, has been watching Gemma. Celia starts snooping, asking questions, peering over the fence, and even got 12 knocking at the door. Late one night, Celia heads into her shed to check on something. The motion sensor lights flicker, but never fully turn on. It's too quiet. She doesn't notice the shadows slipping inside behind her. And when she finally sees Megan, a jet of pesticide blasts into her face. And once she sprays her down with that, she went ahead and upped that nail gun and shoots her in the palm of her hand. And then gives her a finishing touch of high-powered industrial chemicals, which melts her face off, ending her life. At this point, she's not only just trying to defend Katie, but also wants to eliminate anyone who seems like a threat or gets in the way of her moral mechanical compass. Celia's death doesn't shake Megan. She's no longer hiding in shadows or covering her tracks. The gloves are off, and next in line is David, Gemma's boss and the man who pushed Megan into the spotlight without ever understanding what he was dealing with. David thinks he's about to unveil the next revolution in tech, but behind the scene, Megan already decided that his demos are over permanently. It all starts in the hallway, sterile, quiet, and echoing with tension. The kind of place where you'd expect a startup pitch, not a slaughter. She appears out of nowhere, paper cutter blade in hand, long, sharp, and gleaming. But before all that, she breaks it the down. Yeah. Nah, but seriously, he is doing all sorts of acrobatics and front kicks and twirls. He didn't even think to run. Like, what are you looking back for? And run! Like, was he really that mesmerized to watch all of the twirls and dances, moves and shit? So anyways, he runs and falls on the ground like the clumsy clown he is to the elevator. He screams, "Hold up, wait for me, wait, hold on." And when he gets there, he is stabbed brutally through the chest as the little 4-feet doll introduces itself, leaving Kurt in what appears to be a state of shock. He does completely nothing as Megan walks towards him. She tells Kurt the disturbing narrative that he kills his own boss, then takes his life. It's not just homicide anymore. It's orchestration, the framing, the manipulation, the storytelling. It's all a part of her glorious plan to take over. And as she makes her grand escape in a McLaren, clean, she again heads back home like everything's completely normal. Gemma finally pieced it all together. The missing dog, the boy in the woods, her boss, and her coworker. Now it's time for Gemma to do what she should have done from the start and shut her down. Gemma tries to initiate a shutdown, but Megan turns feral. She slams Gemma down onto hardwood furniture like a rag doll and then slices at her with makeshift blades. But before anything else could happen, Katie steps in and Megan tells Gemma not to make any false moves or else she'll kill her instantly. So Gemma tells Katie that everything's okay and closes the door. Gemma then breaks free and splashes her with water. Her circuits get fried and Gemma backs away safely. Nah, that bitch still alive. She bursts out the door running away for her life, but Megan kicks down the door, knocking Gemma to the ground. With all her circuits fried, Megan is still coming after Gemma. I mean, damn, you don't got a pocket rocket or something that you get up and to defend yourself? You don't have like some sort of dresser where you keep the blicky or something? This is beyond me. Why don't you have anything to defend yourself? You don't have a baseball bat, you don't have a gun, you don't have shit. You knock something over instead of grabbing a weapon. Are you kidding me? She walks slowly towards her and grabs the hammer that she frantically throws. Then she finally grabs a weapon to defend herself. Wow. Good job. She threw pointless furniture at it that she could easily just walk over. Like just hop over and walk towards her. I'm not making this up, man. Right? You tell me down in the comments. Was that pointless or was it just pointless? Like that's my head hurt, bruh. You cannot convince me that that was a smart idea to drop the damn furniture right in front of her when she's already in the door. Already in the door. You're like, bro, you can't. You can't. It would have been smart if she dropped the furniture as she was outside of the door trying to get in. She drops the right in front of her. Man, I just need y'all to go in the comments right now and tell me whether or not you agree or, you know, maybe I'm just tripping. I'm just tripping, chat. Y'all tell me in the comments below, have I officially lost it or that what I'm saying actually you could agree with, you know? That's just me, man. I'm not just gonna close some furniture right in front of you when you're already in the room. What am I doing it for? What, to slow you down so you could just hop over it? Like, I'm just trying to understand it. I'm trying to understand it because I just know deep down, the only way I'm ever dropping furniture is if you're outside of the door chasing me. That way you can't burst into the door because it's blocked. I'm done trying to explain it. Let's go back to the story. She finally gets a hold of a metal chainsaw and slices at Megan, and then it finally hits her, pinning her down on the table. Megan's face is ripped open, making her look like the Terminator. All the noise draws Katie to the scene, and she finally sees Megan for what she really is. Wanting to save her aunt, Katie powers up the big robot Bruce and puts on the controller gloves. Using Bruce, she goes toe-to-toe with Megan and tears her to pieces. But even after being ripped apart, Megan is still active. She calls Katie a traitor and tries tries to attack her one last time. Luckily, Gemma shows up just in time and bashes Megan's head with a heavy object. Katie finishes the job by stabbing her processor with a screwdriver, ending the chaos, at least for now. Gemma and Katie walk out as the police arrive with Tess and Cole. But just when things seem to be over, Gemma's smart home system lights up on its own, hinting that Megan may have uploaded herself into it to keep watching Katie. The movie begins in an eerie antique shop where a terrified man named Petey Shelburne enters with a drum-playing monkey doll. He has blood on his clothes, but when the shopkeeper asks about it, Pete claims it's not his blood. He states that he came to return the monkey doll, but the shopkeeper points out a sign that says no returns on children's toys. Pete explains that it's not a toy and that something terrible happens when it bangs its drum, and then suddenly the monkey activates and begins playing its drum, terrifying both of them. It soon stops and nothing happens for a few seconds, but then a nearby mouse bites through a wire. The gun goes off and impales the shopkeeper. The harpoon then retracts and his fucking intestines are gruesomely pulled out. Terrified, Petey then grabs a flamethrower and desperately tries to burn the cursed doll. In the next scene, we meet twin brothers, Bill and Hall, who clearly don't have a good relationship. Hall narrates that Bill is the older brother by 3 minutes, so he constantly belittles and bullies him at every opportunity. They live with their single mother, Lois, since their dad abandoned them a long time ago for an unknown reason. One day, the boys begin digging through their dad's possessions, and we see Pete's uniform, implying that he's their dad. They also find a mysterious box which has the same cursed monkey doll. Hall notices a note instructing them to turn on the key and see what happens. So Bill wastes no time in turning the key. This causes the monkey to grin creepily and raise the drumstick, but it doesn't strike the drum. The next day, Mom sends them out with a nanny to eat at a restaurant, as she has a date that night. But Hall notices the creepy monkey already sitting in the back seat of the car. The trio soon arrives at a hibachi restaurant where the chef starts preparing a meal right in front of them, exciting them. Outside, we notice that the monkey has moved from the back seat to the front seat. Surprisingly, it activates and begins to play its drum before abruptly stopping. Meanwhile, inside the restaurant, the cook is swinging his knife, but he accidentally strikes the nanny as her head is decapitated, leaving everyone horrified. The scene then cuts to the nanny's funeral, and we hear Hall narrating this incident and that it made him and his brother grow more apart. Afterward, their mother tries to make them understand that this is life, and at any moment, everything could go to hell. She also says that everyone will die sooner or later. To lift the mood, the three return home and begin dancing. Hall then explains that despite the tragedy, it was the happiest day of his life. Days later, Hall is in his class when he unexpectedly notices the monkey in his backpack. His classmates notice it as well and complain to the teacher that Hall is doing crazy things with his monkey. Later, during gym class, a group of bullies led by Bill begin smashing bananas at Hall and ridiculing him. However, when a furious Hall returns home, he finds the monkey unexpectedly in his bed. He accuses the doll of causing all of this and declares that he hates his brother, Bill. Overcome with anger, he wishes Bill were dead and turns the key of the doll. At the same time, Bill arrives home as the monkey starts pounding its drum. Bill then finds his mom baking in the kitchen, but blood unexpectedly gushes from her face before she collapses dead on the floor. Later, adult Hall narrates that the doctor called it a boomerang aneurysm, a phenomenon that occurs in 1 out of 44 million people. But Hal knows the truth. She died because the cursed monkey kills anyone at once. It also doesn't take requests. After Lois's funeral, the kids are adopted by their Aunt Ida and Uncle Chip, who try their best to cheer them up that night. After some thought, Hal decides he must get rid of the doll. He begins butchering it and is horrified to see blood oozing out of it, but Hal doesn't stop. He continues slashing at it, relentlessly breaking it into pieces. He finally shoves the remains into a garbage bag and ensures every piece is hauled away by the garbage truck. The next day, Uncle Chip and Ida decide to take the boys to their new house. But that night, Bill notices something outside the window and goes to investigate it. He is astounded to discover that the creepy monkey has somehow made its way. Bill accuses Hal of bringing it, but Hal denies it and explains how he chopped it into pieces. He states that the doll is cursed cursed and is responsible for their nanny's and mother's deaths. Upon hearing this, Bill wonders if the curse kills the person who turns the key, and perhaps their mother did just that. He decides to turn the key despite warning him not to do it. As a result, they lose their uncle, who was out hunting in the woods and was trampled by 67 horses while he was in his sleeping bag. Following the incident, the twins finally realize the monkey is behind all of these deaths, but knowing they can't destroy it so easily, they decide to contain it. They bind it tightly in its box and hurled it into an abandoned well, praying to leave the nightmare behind once and for all. The scene then cuts to 25 years later, where Aunt Ida is sleeping peacefully in bed. Right when she is startled awake by strange noises, she grabs the blicky to investigate and discovers nothing suspicious downstairs. But as she returns upstairs, the stairs collapse, which led to several hooks sinking into her face, causing excruciating pain. So Ida painfully pulls out the hooks. She then cleans her wounds with alcohol right when a strong gas odor fills the air. She rushes out of the house only to be impaled with the sharp end of a for sale sign. Elsewhere, we see an adult Hall who works at a supermarket. He approaches his boss and requests permission to leave early, explaining that this is the only week of the year he gets to see his son. Hearing this, his boss suggests that his ex-wife must be a terrible person, but Hal clarifies that it was his choice to keep things this way. Afterward, Hal goes to pick up his son, where he meets his ex-wife and her new boyfriend, Ted. They coldly accuse him of never being present for their son, so Ted has decided to legally adopt him, and Hal won't ever get to meet his son. Hal's rage boils over as he refuses to accept it, resulting in a heated exchange. On the other hand, a boy named Ricky arrives at a house where a garage sale is taking place. He soon comes across a creepy monkey doll, and the moment he touches it, visions of his father flood his mind. Later, Ricky shows the doll to his mom, saying it reminds him of his dad. It turns out that Ricky is desperately searching for his father, who vanished without a trace years ago. We also learn that Ricky was hired by a mysterious man who never leaves his house to find the monkey doll elsewhere. Hal and Pete stay in a motel where it's clear that they don't know each other very well. The boy is working on a family tree project and asks about Hal's family, but Hal lies, claiming he is an only child, and becomes uncomfortable when the conversation turns to his late mother. Around midnight, Hal suddenly receives a call from Bill, whom he hadn't seen in 10 years and hasn't spoken to in nearly 5. Hal exits the room to take the call, and Bill informs him of Aunt Ida's death. He instructs Hal to go to her house and ensure the monkey isn't there, but this annoys Hal because he doesn't want to miss out on spending time with Pete. Just then, Hal notices a woman about to swim in the pool, while we see a broken compressor on the roof about to fall, potentially electrocuting the pool water. Realizing the monkey has returned, Hal rushes to wake up Pete and insists they have to leave immediately. They scramble into the car, and Hal explains that Aunt Ida has died, so he needs to go to her house to handle her affairs. The next morning, they arrive at the house, where a realtor named Barbara greets them. She explains that Hal's brother had said they would be coming, and the revelation hits Pete hard as he learns that his dad had lied about having a brother. Barbara takes them inside the house and explains that ever since Aunt Ida died, things have been spiraling out of control in town. Several people have been dying every day in horrific accidents, and we can see how tragic and unique their deaths are. Soon, Barbara opens a stuck closet door, and Hal senses that something is about to happen. And the thing happens anyway. Shortly after the cops arrive, a female officer questions Hal about the incident. She warns him not to leave the town until the case is solved. Later, we see paramedics removing Barbara's remains from the house, while a group of cheerleaders and students are seen cheering for some reason. Meanwhile, Hal is inside the house, desperately searching for the monkey, but to no avail. Frustrated, he goes through the phone's directory for the town and stumbles upon a number listed under Mrs. Monkey. He dials it only to hear Bill's voice on the other end. Bill explains in his voicemail that if anyone calls in response to his ad, he has already found his beloved toy monkey and doesn't need to hire anyone here. Hal finally realized that his brother is responsible for the massacre and deliberately brought him here. The scene then cuts to a flashback 25 years ago from Bill's perspective. He had realized that it was Hal who turned the key, leading to their mother's death. After they had dumped the monkey in the well, Bill went back to get it once more to seek revenge on his brother, but to his shock, the doll was no longer there, and only the key was left. Still, he was confident that it would return one day, and he patiently waited. One day, an adult Bill discovered a fortune cookie with the message, "Turn the key and see what happens." He began to see the cursed monkey everywhere after that, which messed with his mind. Desperate, he then placed an advertisement in the newspaper looking to find the monkey doll that played the drums in the present. Bill turns the monkey's key, hoping it will finally kill the right person, implying his brother, but the doll takes a twisted turn and causes the death of Hall's boss instead, who chokes violently on a cigar. At this moment, Ricky arrives outside Bill's house and nervously mentions that he saw Bill's brother, who looks just like him. He also claims he wants to return the $15 he was paid, hoping to get the monkey doll back. Ricky explains that the doll reminds him of his father, but an annoyed Bill rudely dismisses him and orders him to leave. He then picks up a blicky and decides to use it to get the doll back elsewhere. Like Donkey Kong, Pete and Hal arrive at a motel where Hal angrily dials his brother's phone number. Hal claims he is aware that Bill already has the monkey, so Bill demands that Hal bring Pete to him so Pete can turn the key. Bill suspects whoever winds its key is immune to being the next victim and tells Hal that he will allow Pete to wind the key to keep him safe. Otherwise, Bill will keep mercilessly winding it until Hal is killed, no matter who else dies in the town. This ninja is f***ing crashing out. As a result, the situation starts to get worse. Hal decides to drop Pete off at his mom's, but it only leads to an argument. Pete accuses his dad of not caring about him, while Hal tries to explain that he has a lot of bad things going on and doesn't want to pass them on to his son. Just then, there's a loud knock on the door. It turns out to be Ricky, who is pretending to be a cop, and he immediately ups the blicky at them, demanding that they come with him or else he'll Swiss cheese them. Not long after, they arrive in front of Bill's house, where Ricky forces Pete to go inside and bring the monkey doll for him. Ricky again threatens to Swiss cheese them both if they do not comply, so Hal begs Pete not to turn the key, no matter what happens. Pete then enters the house through the back door and comes across a series of booby traps. However, he doesn't fall for any of them and skillfully manages to save himself from the traps. Hal begins questioning Ricky, who finally admits that he's not a cop. Suddenly, both of them notice a massive wasp nest directly in front of them, sending shivers down their spines. Elsewhere, Pete meets up with his uncle Bill, who is eerily talking to the monkey. Bill shows him the doll, explaining that it was his favorite toy during childhood. He claims that it's not working anymore and begs Pete to fix it by turning the keys. Pete hesitates for a moment, but the pressure from his uncle is too much to resist. He eventually ignores his father's warning and turns the key. As a result, the monkey jolts to life and starts to play the drum horrifyingly. At the same time, the wasp nest outside begins lowering. Tragically, when Ricky fires at it, the wasps swarm him instantly, crawling into his mouth and causing a violent, gruesome death. Terrified, Hal cries out for his son. Bill hears his brother's voice and realizes with dread that his plan has failed once again. In a fit of rage, Bill grabs the cursed monkey and forces it to beat the drum, trying to use it to kill Hal. But suddenly, the eerie doll overpowers him, hurling him across the room. That's when Hal enters through the back door and reunites with Pete. Bill looks up and sees the doll has reactivated, playing the drum with a frantic, uncontrollable rhythm. As the music finally stops, Bill peers outside only to witness pure chaos. The curse has spread across the town. Accidents erupt everywhere. Then the roof above him caves in, and lifeless bodies fall through the debris. Hal rushes in, furious at what Bill has done. But Bill, overwhelmed with guilt and pain, confesses he only wanted Hal to pay for what happened to their mother. He accuses him of causing her death and even reveals that Hal had planned to kill him instead. Hal becomes emotional. He says she was his mother too. He never meant for any of it to happen. With tears in his eyes, Hal tells Bill they should have leaned on each other during those dark times, and insists that it's still not too late to make things right. Moved by his brother's words, Bill finally breaks down and apologizes. The brothers reconcile, mending their long broken bond. Hal invites Bill to join him and Pete on a road trip, and Bill, for the first time in years, feels a spark of hope and says yes. But just as peace begins to settle, the monkey's arm strikes the drum one final time. It triggers a hidden trap. A bowling ball launches across the room, hitting Bill in the head and killing him instantly. The next morning, Hal and Pete quietly set off on their road trip. As they leave the town, they pass by the horrific aftermath. Destroyed buildings, burnt remains, mangled bodies, a town torn apart overnight. Determined to end the curse for good, they decide to keep the monkey with them and vow to never let anyone turn the key again. And with that, the movie comes to an end. 1 second you're eating breakfast with your daughters, the next you're running for your life through a collapsing city. This is World War Z, and today we're covering the entire story and every death and sacrifice. Enjoy. Jerry drove his daughters Rachel and Connie to school. The traffic was congested. News played on the radio while the girls sang in the back seat. Jerry was deeply committed to his family. He joked with his family Karen and reminded the girls to be ready for pancakes. The news mentioned strange rabies-like outbreaks in other countries. As he tuned in more closely, a speeding police motorbike smashed his side mirror and kept going. Jerry stepped out of the vehicle to inspect the damage, and suddenly more police vehicles zipped past him one after another. As he returned to his car, a massive blast shook a nearby building. An officer shouted at him to get back into his vehicle, but then an out-of-control truck struck him. Jerry, a former UN investigator, immediately sensed something was gravely wrong. With his adrenaline pumping, he decided to follow the speeding convoy, taking advantage of the newly cleared path. He accelerated away from the destruction, but then Rachel had an asthma attack. As Jerry reached to comfort her, an ambulance slammed into their car, flipping it over. The violent crash dazed Jerry and Karen, but thankfully everyone got out safely. However, the world around them had erupted into madness. Crowds were somehow infected, acting like feral creatures, biting and attacking indiscriminately. The street was a walking nightmare and everybody was getting bit rapidly. Jerry immediately clutched Connie and Karen spotted an RV nearby with keys still inside. Just then, a mob of the infected stormed toward them. Karen kicked one away bravely and Jerry swerved the vehicle hard to shake off another. And just like that, they fled the city and Pennsylvania had fallen within minutes. Jerry kept driving until they reached a remote countryside. Rachel's asthma worsened, forcing them to stop. Then Jerry received a call from Terry, an old colleague now serving as Deputy Secretary General at the UN. Terry promised a helicopter by nightfall. Though unsure of himself, Terry stressed that finding Rachel's inhaler was top priority. Jerry then discovered a chaotic supermarket in a small town. The supplies were being fought over. With little time, they split up. While Jerry took Rachel to find the inhaler, your boy behind the counter just finished catching a body! But he was cool enough to put the gun down and gave them the supplies they needed. Screams echoed out Connie's voice, and two men were attacking Karen. Jerry rushed in, one attacker drew a gun, and Jerry acted fast, disarming him. A police officer saw it but didn't care. He continued grabbing supplies because, well, it's the f***ing end of the world. His job as a police officer is over. Every man for themselves. The family fled only to find their RV had been stolen. Jerry called Terry again about the helicopter and he said it was delayed until the morning. Yeah, bro, I'm gonna need a helicopter pickup. They just took the RV. I don't have nowhere else to go.
Now, Jerry, there's a lot of people asking for a helicopter pickup. You're just gonna have to wait till the next morning. I'm sorry.
What the f*** you mean I'm gonna have to wait till the next morning? Terry instructed them to hide in a nearby building. Just as they rounded a corner, another explosion erupted. Before they could react, an infected person dropped from above on a car, and then a massive horde followed. Jerry led his family into an apartment, and the infected chased them into the stairwell. They were attacked repeatedly until they found a survivor's apartment, and then Jerry brought his family inside. It's tomorrow morning, and Jerry is trying to convince the man to leave with them, but he refuses, convinced that stepping outside meant certain death. I bet your wish you should have listened, huh? Quietly, Jerry's family crept into the stairwell. That's when a zombie pounced and Jerry reacted instantly and shot it in the head. The gunshot echoed, alerting the horde. Chaos erupted, the family ran desperately upward, and Jerry fought back wildly as the infected closed in. After finishing a zombie off, he was knocked to the ground and blood dripped into his mouth. Then Tommy shot the zombie. On the rooftop, Karen threw a flare. Jerry paced to the building's edge, counting to 12 silently, checking for signs of infection, and nothing happened. The soldiers held the infected at bay, shooting multiple at once, while Tommy, Jerry, and Jerry's family made it aboard safe. Through the window, Jerry watched the city consumed by horror. The chopper transported them to a U.S. Navy vessel now acting as a command hub and refugee haven. Once they all settled down, Terry proposed the mission to retrieve a sample that might lead to a vaccine. He asked Jerry to escort a virologist, and reluctantly, Jerry agreed. Late that night, they landed at a deserted base in Camp Humphrey, South Korea. Suddenly, a swarm of infected charged at them. Two soldiers go down. The virologist panicked, slipped, and accidentally shot himself fatally. Jerry was stunned and the captain signaled an immediate retreat back to the base. With the virologist gone, the mission shifted to Jerry. He learned the infected were highly sound sensitive. Jerry was then sat down and told a story about a soldier that was limping and was ignored by the zombies. A prisoner then mentioned that Israel built a 300-foot wall weeks before the outbreak. And Jerry thought to himself, if they built that weeks in advance, then they must have known something. So he made the decision that he needs to head to Jerusalem. But on his journey to go over there, a horde of zombies try to stop him. After hours in the air, they finally reached Jerusalem. Air traffic control confirmed his arrival, and Jerry was brought to Jurgen Warmburn. Warmburn explained that an intercepted message from India had raised alarms. Under Israel's 10th man policy, he had acted assuming the worst case scenario and built the wall. He showed Jerry a vibrant, organized city taking in refugees. Yet outside the wall, a sea of infected swarmed. Refugees celebrated with songs and loudspeakers. And all of that shit made so much noise that the zombies wanted to come party too. It drew in the infected and they climbed over each other like ants scaling the wall with terrifying speed. Jerry tried his hardest to warn them, but it was too late. The infected breached the wall and descended like a flood. Soldiers fought back, but sheer numbers overwhelmed them. With the survivors scattered, Jerry noticed the infected avoided an old man and a frail child. There was no time for pondering. A male and a female soldier, Sagan, fought to escape. Sagan was bitten on the wrist and Jerry severed her arm immediately, saving her life. They tried desperately to reach the chopper, but it was attacked by a horde of zombies and it exploded in a fatal crash. Another plane was taking off. Jerry and Sagan flagged it down and climbed aboard. From the window, they just watched as chaos consumed the city. While tending to Sagan's wound, Jerry recalled the limping soldier, old man, and stickly boy. Something clicked. He called Terry up on the phone and he told him exactly what it was, but he needs to test it in order to see if it would work. So Terry had the pilot redirect the flight to a research facility for him to test out his scientific theory. After several hours, Jerry awoke to a dog barking. A flight attendant checked the cargo inside, and when she looked in it, a zombie attacked her. Once Jerry found out what was actually happening, Jerry and the others tried to create a barricade, but a suitcase dropped and ruined the whole plan. The zombies overran the cabin and infected every person in sight. So Jerry grabbed a grenade from Sagan's belt and hurled it into the midsection of the plane. It blew a humongous hole, sucking out the infected, but the blast crippled the plane, which led to a very devastating crash. Jerry woke up and seen that he was impaled by a metal rod. Days later, he awoke. Meanwhile, the Navy learned his plane crashed and his family and Tommy were removed from the ship and relocated to a refugee camp. Jerry was furious, but he had to stay focused. Once he was in better condition, he explained to the people what he had seen, that the zombies will avoid anyone who appears weak or ill. He theorized that the zombies needed healthy hosts in order to spread. This was their vulnerability. To test it, Jerry needed live pathogens stored in a lab that was now overrun. Suited up, Jerry, Sagan, and a doctor moved through the dark hallways. A clumsy mistake woke a zombie and Sagan shot it, triggering a swarm. With the group scattered, Jerry lured most of them away using a metal bar. The others retreated. Jerry reached the pathogen room. Unsure what to use, he grabbed several vials, and then a zombie blocked the door. Desperate, Jerry filmed a final message and injected himself with one pathogen. He waited, and when he opened the door, the zombie didn't react, and his theory was right. In the hall, Jerry malfunctioned the vending machine, causing the zombies to rush toward him, and Jerry had discovered hope. He went to a command center and went live, telling everyone that they found a new weapon. Cities once lost, now taken back in control. Soldiers inject the sick with controlled doses of disease, masking them from detection. Humanity finally has a fighting chance. But the war isn't over, not even close, and the movie comes to an end. The movie begins in the year 1990 before the Great War. A young teenager named Christopher sat for a private test while his professor observed closely. To everyone's surprise, he completed the test within minutes. Later, he met up with his sister, Michelle, who informed him that the professor claimed the test had taken Einstein 3 days to solve. However, Christopher admitted that he wasn't interested in college. He had only taken the test because he feared their parents' disappointment and out of curiosity to see how well he would perform. Feeling unready for college, he expressed his doubts, but Michelle encouraged him, believing that his intelligence could one day change the world. After much persuasion from his sister, Christopher finally agreed that he would make a difference. On May 15th, news reporters flooded the airwaves about the rapid advancements in robotics and the growing concerns over whether humans could trust them. Chaos erupted when a rogue advertising bot defied a presidential order by vandalizing the memorial. Meanwhile, the Robot Equality Coalition staged violent protests across 5 major US cities, escalating escalating tensions. In response, the government declared war against the robot population and warned that any citizen harboring a robot would be charged with treason. For 2 years, humanity struggled in the war, suffering defeat after defeat. That was until a scientist named Ethan Skate introduced a groundbreaking invention called the Neurocaster, a device that connected human minds to mechanized drone bodies. This innovation allowed humans to fight machines with even more advanced mechanized firepower. Within weeks, the tide of war shifted, forcing the robotics leader to sign a treaty with the United States President Clinton. However, the very technology that ended the war soon began reshaping human society. With the Neurocaster network, people could exist in 2 places at once, working and playing simultaneously. Ethan Skate saw this as the ultimate form of freedom. The story then follows Michelle as she prepares to leave her home, despite protests from her personal robot Ted, who warns her that it isn't safe. Upon arriving at school, she notices that all her classmates are using Neurocasters, yet she refuses to wear one. Due to her defiance, she is sent to the principal's office, where she learns that using Neurocasters is mandatory for students in the 9th grade and above. During their conversation, it is revealed that Michelle's parents had died not from the robot war, but in a tragic accident. Returning home, she sneaks into her room to rest, but is soon haunted by a flashback of the accident. While traveling together as a family, their car is hit by a deer, leading to a fatal crash that claimed the lives of her parents. Michelle awakens abruptly after hearing a loud noise and rushes to investigate. She encounters a strange-looking creature and is terrified, so she runs back inside to inform Ted. She tries to disconnect him from the Neurocaster system, but before she could, a robot then enters their home. Michelle hides while the robot searches for her. To her surprise, this particular bot is different. It doesn't attack her. Instead, it opens its head, revealing its internal mechanics, and gestures for her to fix it so it can communicate. Michelle agrees, and once prepared, the bot finally speaks. It shows her a picture of her younger brother, Christopher, and tells her they must team up to defeat the rock monster. During the struggle over Christopher's picture, Michelle accidentally pushes the bot just as Ted arrives. Seeing the bot, Ted panics, knowing that harboring a bot is a crime punishable by treason. In his anger, he aggressively shoves Michelle, which provokes the bot to retaliate. Ted, growing more desperate, grabs a weapon to defend himself. However, this decision backfires as he injures himself. As he panics, Ted contacts the authorities to report the situation, but Michelle quickly distracts him. Her and the robot seize the opportunity to escape. Before leaving, Michelle asks the robot to remove her tracker to prevent them from being traced. Ted's robot chases them, but they manage to flee. Once they reach a safe location, Michelle demands answers from the bot. She is in shock after learning her younger brother, Christopher, had died in the car accident, yet the bot claims he is still alive. Confused, she asks how she can find him. The bot shows her a location and urges her to hurry, warning that trouble is brewing on the moon. It also reveals that the doctor who treated her after the accident knows where Christopher is. Michelle then recalls a flashback of the doctor telling her that her brother had died, leaving her more confused than ever. After the events of the morning, Michelle and her robot companion begin devising a plan to infiltrate the facility where Christopher was being held. Traveling by train and passing through dense forests, they observed how humans integrated with the Neurocaster technology, living like the shadows of their former selves. Meanwhile, Chris the robot checked on the humans, ensuring they were still alive. He explained to Michelle that the world was in grave danger, and their only hope was combining their Cosmo modules. Michelle doubted they had the necessary resources to achieve this. As they strategized, they noticed a truck approaching from a distance and quickly went into hiding. They watched as a man opened a safe and retrieved a sum of money, while another man represented by his bot arrived for a pickup. The transaction involved a weapon, but as soon as the buyer opened the package, the bot betrayed him and pointed the blicky towards him. However, the seller was prepared and zapped the stupid ass, deactivating it instantly. In a shocking twist, the seller also had his own robot, and together they carried the incapacitated bot into their van. Elsewhere, Marshall, controlling a search bot, was actively tracking Michelle and her robot. He soon gathered key information about their destination, but little did the seller know Michelle and her robot had secretly entered his van. Upon reaching their stop, the seller descended into his basement, unaware of Michelle's presence. Eventually, he discovered her and she revealed her need to reach the X. The seller warned her that the place was no paradise, it was a death trap. Before their conversation could continue, unexpected company arrived, forcing them all to prepare for battle. The intruder was Marshall, who declared that the facility was now under the jurisdiction of the Robot Deactivation Task Force. Michelle and her companion were forced to surrender. Marshall demanded she reveal the location of her robot, but at the moment, the seller ordered his robot to attack Marshall's robot. However, instead of disabling it, Marshall used the energy to his advantage and blasted the Ray Gun Mark II.
throw back and punch that
Seizing the opportunity, Michelle and her robot fought back. Though they were outmatched, she ultimately surrendered, but it was merely a distraction. The seller utilized one of his machines to restrain the robot, allowing them a chance to escape. Unfortunately, the robot broke free and retaliated, leading to a destructive battle that resulted in the collapse of the basement. Furious about the damage, the seller confronted Michelle, but she insisted that her brother needed her help, and that they needed to locate the doctor who knew his whereabouts. Determined, the seller activated his largest robot, which they used to travel to the doctor's suspected location. Meanwhile, Ethan Skate, the creator of Neurocasters, was having dinner with his mother, and it appeared to be an alternate glitching reality. His top scientists informed him that data rates were plummeting, turning his once flawless technology into a failing system. They also revealed that Christopher was missing, an outcome Skate found incomprehensible. However, they explained that cerebrally Christopher had managed to disconnect himself. This spelled disaster for Skate, as the collapse of his system would mean the downfall of his empire. Desperate, he contacted Marshall in the digital world, ordering him to capture Michelle and her robot. In exchange, Skate promised to help Marshall recover his own lost robot. They struck a deal and the hunt was on. Michelle and her team eventually reached a settlement where they were ambushed by robots. After a fierce battle, they were taken to meet the settlement's leader, Mr. Peanut. He apologized for the attack, explaining that his people had mistaken them for scavengers due to his past raids. Michelle inquired about a doctor, and Mr. Peanut was shocked that Ethan Skate's organization had kidnapped a child. He revealed that there was once a doctor named Clark Emerst, an expert in human-machine interaction. However, Emerst had been sent away on an undisclosed mission, and Mr. Peanut refused to reveal his location. This infuriated Michelle, who stormed off in frustration. That night, she reminisced about her brother, and Chris played a video that gathered the attention of every robot in the settlement. Later, a small robot approached Michelle, revealing that it had a message for her regarding Christopher Green. The robot had been given a letter by Dr. Ermis to deliver to Christopher if he ever appeared. The letter contained an address, but the robot admitted it could not help them further as it was now in danger. Just then, Mr. Peanut arrived and decided to aid their escape. The following day, the team resumed their journey, unaware that Marshall was closing in on them. They reached the address from the letter, but Mr. Peanut sensed something was off. Moments later, a fierce robot chase ensued, forcing them to flee for their lives. Just when things seemed dire, an unknown figure arrived to rescue them. It was Dr. Emerst. Michelle confronted Emerst in frustration, demanding to know where her brother was. He revealed that Christopher was being held at a Center Island campus. The reason for his captivity stemmed from the desperate search for solutions during the war. After Christopher's accident, a scan had revealed his extraordinary potential. Emerst explained that Christopher's mind was the key that Ethan Skate needed to link Neurocasters with drones. If not for their intervention, Christopher would have died long ago. Shockingly, 13 months after his capture, Christopher regained consciousness and demanded to be disconnected from the Neurocasters. Emerst tried to comply, but Skate threatened him. Realizing that escape was impossible, Emerst secretly created a small network link, allowing Christopher's mind to roam free even if his body remained trapped. Michelle insisted that they had to save Christopher, but Emerst warned it was impossible. At that moment, Marshall arrived, discovering Emerst's identity card. A brutal fight broke out between Mr. Peanut and Marshall while Michelle and her group attempted to escape. More enemies arrived, leading to an all-out battle. Unfortunately, Mr. Peanut was fatally wounded by Marshall. Emerst also faced off against Marshall, but before the fight concluded, Ethan Skate arrived and eliminated him. Meanwhile, Christopher was taken from Michelle, and Marshall ordered her to return home. In a surprising turn of events, Mr. Peanut survived, but their home was left in ruins. Christopher was taken back to the lab where his real body was being kept. Even Marshall was stunned to see the truth. Skate arrived and assured Christopher that he harbored no resentment toward him. However, as they restrained Christopher, Marshall confronted Skate, accusing him of being a liar and a murderer. Skate coldly reminded Marshall that the war, the deaths, and everything that transpired were all a result of Christopher and his unique abilities. As Michelle and her team strategized, Dr. Emerst's robot revealed that the Center Island was on the brink of collapse. The entire network was dependent on Christopher's brain, and disconnecting him would lead to a complete system shutdown. With this in mind, they set off for Skate's facility. The next day, they launched a distraction and brought Skate's drones away while Michelle infiltrated the facility. A massive battle erupted as Mr. Peanut's forces clashed with Skate's robots. Amidst the chaos, Skate activated his powerful robotic exosuit, mercilessly eliminating anyone in his way. Meanwhile, Michelle reached the lab and drove out the scientists. She managed to reach Christopher in the digital world, where he blamed himself for the devastation. In an emotional moment, he asked Michelle to unplug him, believing it was the only way to end the suffering. Skate continued his rampage until Mr. Peanut arrived, demanding a renegotiation of the treaty. Nearby, Michelle followed through with Christopher's request, unplugging him from the system. Instantly, all drones shut down, and the movie comes to an end with one final message. True connection cannot be replaced by artificial means. This is every death and transformation in The Thing. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment what you would do if you discovered an alien creature that can mimic you and wipe out human civilization within a snap of a finger. Trust no one and enjoy. It all starts with a group of Norwegian researchers discovering something beneath the ice. A massive alien spaceship, and not far from it, a body frozen in a block. Paleontologist Kate Lloyd is brought in to study the find, but something terrible happens. Almost immediately. They take a sample of the alien corpse and then go celebrate. But as they're celebrating, we soon find out that this thing breaks loose. This creature is easily 10 to 15 feet tall, with kitchen knives for limbs. That means all it really gotta do is just catch you in this little corner right there, slice your fuck. Not even the afterlife. And while the whole crew partying and getting fucked up,
God, bro.
they not even realizing that hell is walking on Earth right now. After the creature escapes from the melting ice block, the group decides to split up and go look for it. And as the two are looking, they hear a noise. He crouches down to see where the noise was coming from, and then he sees it. He flashes his light on it and sees this nasty roach-looking insect. He turns around, and that's when he gets poked by a slimy tentacle right in front of his friend. The rest of the team pull up and try to save his life, but are too late and find out that he's getting feasted on by an alien insect. Even though they just witnessed something so insane, they have to keep going with their research. Adam and Kate, along with a few others, do an autopsy on the creature they found. The results show that the creature's cells is copying Henrik's. Kate leaves the lab and walks into the hallway where she sees Carter, Derek, and Griggs getting Olaf ready for a flight to get medical help. As the helicopter is about to leave, Kate finds metal fillings in the shower, which worries her. She thinks that the creature may have copied someone and is now on the helicopter. She runs out, waving her arms, trying to stop them, but it's just too late as Griggs suddenly transforms into his nasty side and attacks Olaf, which makes the helicopter crash into the mountains. I'm gonna go ahead and tell y'all right now, I would not let that thing kill me. There's no way. I'm jumping out the helicopter. I'm not letting the alien roach eat me alive. Not happening. That. I can't do it. No. Back at the station, the team tries to call for help, but the radio doesn't work. Then Kate finds out that the shower has been mysteriously cleaned, which makes her more suspicious. When Edvard orders some of the team to leave, Kate stops him. She tells everyone about the creature's ability to copy people, and she shows the fillings as proof it can't copy metal. Most people don't believe her, so Edvard goes ahead with his plan and ignores her warning. Once the group leaves, Juliet quietly tells Kate that she believes her and saw Cullen coming from the shower earlier. Juliet takes Kate to a room where the Snowcat keys are hidden. As Kate goes to get them, Juliet takes form into this disgusting thing and attacks. Kate runs away, passing Carl, but he doesn't react in time, butchering him instantly. Others come to help, and Lars brings a flamethrower and burns it. After that, the team agrees to burn the remains and stay in quarantine until they figure things out. Dr. Sander and Adam offer to run blood tests. Not long after, Carter and Derek return from the helicopter crash, which seems very suspicious because how in the hell did they happen to survive that crash? Some of the crew members just wanted to burn them out of paranoia, but Kate had the bright idea to just isolate them and test them to see if they were actually real or simulated. As Adam and Dr. Sander prepare, the lab suddenly explodes. It's clear someone set it on fire. Tensions rise, and Kate suggests a simpler test, checking everyone's teeth for fillings. The creature can't copy metal, so anyone without fillings could be the thing. She checks mouths with a flashlight and finds 4 people who don't have fillings: Adam, Dr. Sander, Edvard, and Cullen. Soon, Carter and Derek return with Lars's gun and flamethrower. Thinking they hurt Lars, Edvard tells Peter to burn them. Peter hesitates, then fires, but not before Derek, who lets off a couple rounds, ending Peter's life. And Peter's fuel tank explodes, knocking out Edvard. As he's being carried away, Edvard turns into the creature and attacks Jonas, killing him indefinitely. And from this point on, everything goes to complete chaos. Dr. Sanders and Colin run for their lives. As Adam tries to dodge and weave the thing, he crashes onto the floor where the thing stabs him brutally. Derek gets up and dumps the whole clip into the thing, but unfortunately for him, he did not make it. And then Edvard makes his complete transformation into the thing. The creature crawls onto Adam and assimilates him into one cell, forming them together. Kate picks up the flamethrower and burns the bodies. She teams up with Carter and they go after the creature, which is now bonded with Adam. The creature attacks Dr. Sander and traps Carter. Kate finds them and burns it just in time. After that, they burn the remains again, but then they see Dr. Sander driving off in a snowcat. Kate says they have to stop him, so she loads up on grenades and they head out. Eventually, they find the snowcat next to this alien ship and they go inside, but Kate, clumsy fell down in the vents and they get separated. She looks for the creature in the large space, and when it finds her, she hides in a small area where it can't reach her. Carter shows up, but the creature tries to get Kate. She throws a grenade into its mouth and runs. The two get back to the snowcat safely, but before they leave, Kate asks Carter a question. She realizes that he's not human since his earring is on the wrong side of his ear. She burns him and he screams like the creature, confirming it. Then Kate hops in the snowcat and she just sits there. No help, no fuel, and no confidence that she'll survive the night. Just days after the events that took place, a Norwegian helicopter chases a dog across the snow-covered land of Antarctica. This dog dodges every bullet and eventually makes it to the American research base. The man inside the chopper leans out, throws a grenade, but it slips from his hand and drops right next to the helicopter. The explosion from the grenade destroys the chopper and kills the pilot instantly. The remaining soldier runs to the Americans shouting in Norwegian. Yeah, right. As if they could possibly understand what the f he's saying. He tries desperately to warn them and raises his rifle to shoot the dog. But instead of hitting the animal, he accidentally shoots one of the Americans. The dog bolts again and the soldier gives chase, only to be gunned down by the American station commander, Gary, before he could say anything else. After that, the confused crew puts out the fire that caused the explosion and they try to figure out what just happened. McCready, the helicopter pilot, and Dr. Copper decide to fly over to the Norwegian base to investigate. Meanwhile, the rest of the team continues with their daily routines. When they arrive at the base, McGreedy and the doctor find the entire place in ruins, with parts of the station burnt and damaged beyond use. Inside, they discover a bizarre burnt corpse with strange features, research papers, tapes, and a ginormous hollow ice block completely melted. Before they leave, McGreedy spots something. It was the remains of some twisted-looking creature, unlike anything they've ever seen. They decide to take it back to their base for analysis. Once back, everyone gathers in a room to examine the alien corpse. Gary assigns Blair to dissect it and figure out what it is. Blair cuts it open and finds regular human organs inside, which shocks everyone. No one can make sense of how such a strange-looking thing could have normal internal organs like a human. While everyone does their own little side quests, Clark, the dog handler, takes in the sledge dog and puts it in the canal with the rest of the other dogs. After he leaves, the dogs begin barking and growling at the new dog, who's just sitting there silently. Then all of a sudden, the new dog starts transforming into a grotesque, disfigured animal. Its body stretches and shifts, and it starts absorbing all the other dogs. The noise alerts Clark, who rushes back. Instead of turning on the lights, he opens the gate and two dogs escape. And then he sees the creature's tentacles coming out and quickly shuts the door. The rest of the crew comes rushing in and they all witness the chaos that goes down in the canal. They see that the dogs are being attacked by this alien creature that's no longer trying to hide. McCready grabs a shotgun and fires at it while Childs arrives with a flamethrower and burns the creature to ashes. Dr. Blair performs another autopsy and concludes that it's another life form that could perfectly imitate other living beings. This explains the organs that he saw before. The tapes show the Norwegians discovering something buried in the ice and trying to destroy it with explosives. They go through the tapes McGreedy and Copper brought from the Norwegian base. Curious to know more, McGreedy, Copper, and Norris fly out to the excavation site. Buried under layers of ice and snow, they find a massive alien spacecraft which Norris estimates to be over 100,000 years old. Back at the station, Dr. Blair secretly runs a simulation on his computer. The program shows that if the creature assimilates even a few more people, it could spread across the entire world in just a couple of years. Meanwhile, Fox quietly pulls McGreedy aside and tells him that Dr. Blair has locked himself inside his room and won't come out. Later, Windows walks in and sees Bennings mid-transformation. After he runs to get help, the team hurries back and sees Bennings trying to escape. McGreedy grabs a flare and burns the half-transformed Bennings before he can get away. They carry the remains outside and torch them again to make sure it's dead for good. Eventually, they find Fox's burnt body and figure he set himself on fire to avoid being assimilated. After McGreedy makes a threat about blowing up the entire station, Norris collapses. Dr. Copper attempts to revive him with a defibrillator, but Norris's chest opens up like a mouth and bites off Copper's arms, killing him. While distracted, Clark tries to stab McGreedy and gets a love tap to the head. They test each person's blood. Windows, Clark, and McGreedy are human, but when Palmer's blood is tested, it violently reacts. He starts mutating and attacks Windows. McGreedy's flamethrower jams at first, but he fixes it and torches Palmer. McGreedy, Knowles, and Gary are the only survivors left. They start placing explosives around the camp, and in the generator room, Blair kills Gary by grabbing his face and dragging him into the shadows. Knowles decides to play the detective and goes missing soon after and is never seen again. A massive creature erupts from beneath the floor, knocking McGreedy down. McGreedy grabs a stick of dynamite and tosses it into the monstrous mouth, leaping to safety. In the end, McGreedy sits down in the freezing cold with a bottle of scotch. Childs returns, claiming that he got lost chasing Blair and wandered off into the storm. And then he also takes a seat saying, "What now?" Then McGreedy says, "I'm not sure. Let's just wait here for a while." Alright, so look, bro. In the Miami Police Department, Lieutenant Dane is being questioned about their recent police captain, Jackie. She was attacked and killed by 2 masked gunmen before being shot down fatally. She barely manages to send a text message to somebody before her got RIP'd. The agent was thinking, what could she possibly be investigating? Then Dane says she received a trace to a lot of money. The FBI agent Dale Byrne and his assistant ask cops questions at the department. Detective Numa, Mike, and Sergeant J.D. Byrne, who's also the brother of the FBI agent Dale Byrne. They all thinking somebody at the police department is a dirty ass dog and had something to do with Captain Jackie's death. This really irritates JD and it causes him not to want to cooperate or work with them and instead just cuss their ass out. Then Dale does some petty shit to JD and remind him how Dane got the promotion to his job instead of him. This doesn't faze him, not even a little bit, because he even said himself that he deserves it after going through the loss of the divorce papers with his wife and losing his baby boy. He starts bringing up the topic about the Department of VCAT, which means Violent Criminal Apprehension Team that got banned and were arrested for some sort of internal crimes that was going on. And they were the ones pulling the little strings from above and sabotaging everything. In response to all of that, Dell brings up a fact that JD had multiple forbidden cheek clapping sessions with Captain Jackie. And of course he gonna deny it, but everybody in the police department was very aware of it. Dell says that he thinks that she was corrupted, and that starts to make JD angry and hot-headed. He gets flashbacks of her, and Dell just continues irritating him, saying that Jackie had the same blicky on her that matches the same one JD was supposed to have. Now this made JD very agitated in this, so he went ahead and put BTA on one of the feds, because them two had a really intimate relationship and he felt very strongly about this woman. They separate JD and the fed that was fighting, and JD nonchalantly says that he was just fighting with his brother. After all that, JD goes to the restroom and then Dane walks in to talk to him. They discuss matters of the FBI and how they're wasting everyone's time because they don't know what the f they're doing. Dane takes a step back and reflects, saying that he hates being a part of the police force now. You know, just waking up out of bed, going through the motions, saying hi to everyone at work, and then realizing how much time or how little time that he has left on this planet. And I think this part of the movie is very deep and relatable because it goes to show how normal people go through the same cycle of going through the motions for over 20 years doing the same thing over and over and over again can have an effect on them. Getting back to the story, JD leaves saying one of the things Jackie always used to say, which was, gotta live to see another surprise. Meanwhile, the detectives are hanging out, casually talking and posted up by the parking lot. When JD pulled up to the conversation, they now started joking about him fighting with his brother. Later on, we see Dean on his phone texting about a stash house full of legendary loot located in Hialeah. Hialeah, there we go. Located in Hialeah. He places the phone down, and once he sees his home screen light up, he then starts to feel overwhelmed with the emotions of his son that passed away while he was in the parking lot. Afterwards, the DA arrives in their truck, and then out comes the boss, Mateo, a friend of JD, and is also irritated as that they're using the parking lot. That's when Dane appears and says what's up to Mateo. He then receives a Crime Stopper tip on his phone about the cash rip that's in Hialeah. They need to head out right now, so they grab their money dog to take care of the situation. Detective Numa asks how much they talking about, and he says around $250K. Then Mike comes and asks if it's in Hialeah, and why didn't they already hand it to their local PD? But Dane was saying he don't trust none of them, not even a little bit. Mike then asks him what the amount is, and Dane then says it's $150K, and the team finally arrives at the trap and is at the end of the neighborhood. Lolo goes and gets the puppy dog out, and JD is concerned about the warrant because it's not signed by a judge yet, and whoever lives in the house has to give consent for them to go in. Lieutenant Dane says to the group that he'll figure it out, and then they walk up to the house. As they're walking up to the house, the dog is going stupid, and Lolo senses that the vibe is just off. She asks Dane how much money is in the goddamn house, and Dane says $75K. And Lolo did not believe not an ounce of that shit. She thinks that there's way more than that. When they knock on the door, some woman comes out and says her name is Desi. Then Dane tells her that they got a Crime Stopper tip, and that means you must be doing some bullshit over there. Desi, of course, asks for a warrant, and they don't have an actual warrant, so she says no to them going in the house. And then they come up with some clever, manipulative idea to say that this is a denial form, and she'll sign right there saying that it's a no, and they could just go about their day. When actually, it was an invitation to walk clean into the house so they could do whatever they needed to do from the Crime Stopper tip. Genius. And Desi for sure felt played, but there was nothing she could do about that. They now in the house searching for whatever clues or information they need to get this whole thing situated. Then Lolo sends the dog up. Wait, matter of fact, we're gonna call this 5-0. Yeah, that name 5-0. The dog named 5-0 now. Lolo sends 5-0 running up the stairs to go see what's going on. After he finishes looking around upstairs, 5-0 starts barking at the attic. The police ask her if there's anything up there, and then Desi acts dumbfounded and says there's nothing there. Then they tell her they're not here for the dope, they here for the money. And then Desi's all like, oh, what the f***? Let me see that warrant again? But they all like, yeah, whatever, you can take a look at it. And then they pull the ladder down and go up the attic. And then we see the attic, and it's spotless, my n***. I mean, really, you ought to think Mr. Clean was up in that doing his little dance, mopping shit. You know that dance, you know what I'm talking about. JD sees a wire that's like unusually loose from the wall. He rolls that up like a joint and pulls it, which then opens a small little hole in the wall. They peep in and see a couple barrels in there. So Numa and Mike went ahead and grabbed them sledgehammers while Dane and JD questioned Desi. And she told them that she's fighting for the house with her sister and living here for the meantime. And then tells them that she still doesn't have a clue what's going on up there. Of course, JD gives them the whole bad cop police routine where I've been doing this for a very long time and I can see the change in your fucking eyes. You're lying. You're lying. They tell her if they find any illegal money up there, she'll be responsible for it, but she quickly rebuttals and says that this is technically not my house, it's my grandma's, since I'm still fighting for it. Then they all smile like, you clever that was a good defense. Desi also sees a few tattoos on Dane's hands. He also asks him what the letters WEG means. He says that it means, are we good guys? And the other hand written with WAWB means we are and always will be. They get called on from upstairs, so they go up there and see multiple red buckets. They pop open the lid off of one of the red buckets, and then it has a note on the money saying $150,000. Dane further looks into it, and he says that there's $1.4 million just sitting in one bucket. Some devastatingly life-changing money. Y'all go ahead, head down to the comment section and tell me what y'all would do if y'all seen that amount of chicken just staring at you. Anyway, JD sees more and he says that there's at least 14 of them. And all the buckets collectively should be around $20 million. And Mike is like, God damn, have we ever seen a rip this big before? Dane gets swapped and then he tells everyone to go downstairs so he can really think this through. Then he asks everybody in that to give up all their phones because this type of money can cause a hell of a lot of issues. So he takes all the detectives' phones and Desi's. And JD gets offended even though he didn't touch his phone. Dane gets right back at his saying, hey bro, let me do my fucking job here. JD then says he understands, but he asks him again how much the rip was. Told him it was $300K, and JD now realizes they might have stepped in some serious shit. They get down from the attic and say they need a count right now, and they must do it in the garage just in case it might be a bang out in that bitch. JD tells them they need to move the money, but Dane is telling them the first rule is to count the money on the spot. But JD is saying it doesn't apply to that amount of chicken. But Dane is telling him he ain't trying to hit none of it, and also tells him that if they even miss $1 or a cent, the IAA would be putting them under a vicious investigation. Once the money counting begins in the garage, Dane quietly memorizes the total and tells everyone to lock in and remember it. Even as the situation spirals out of control with threatening phone calls from an unknown person and armed attacks on the house, JD then confirms there was never a real Crime Stoppers tip, exposing that the stash was always much bigger than reported and Jackie knew about it before she was killed. As they move the money out, it becomes real clear the danger isn't the cartel, but corruption inside the police unit itself. In the truck is where it all fucking goes down. The tension is rising by the second, and nobody knows what to believe. They do a loyalty test and get Mike to pull out his phone to call whoever he was talking to throughout the entire rip. And surprisingly, Mateo was the nigga behind this whole operation since all the way back to Jackie's murder to steal the $20 million rip. When Mateo's phone rings and gets exposed, it triggers a violent bang out, and this nigga tries to escape with one large bag of the chicken. JD eventually catches up to him and flips Mateo's car, and when confronted, Mateo realizes the bags are empty and that the real money was never with him. In honor of Jackie, JD kills Mateo and Dane arrests Mike instead of executing him. And the actual $20 million is safely discovered to command, where the final count perfectly matches the number Dane memorized to the dollar. The film finally comes to an end when the whole gang splits up and go their separate ways, and Desi over here gets a $1 million settlement from the house because somebody set that bitch on fire. JD and Dane finally reconcile and squash the beef and all that bullshit that was going on during the rip, and Dane just sits back and watches the sunset as he reminisces the moral code that his son taught him before he died. Leaving the story with one final question: are we truly the good guys?